Bases dropped on the latest edition of Soccer Down Here. It's Friday. It's January 24th. Atlanta United's playing a closed-door friendly scrimmage, exhibition, whatever you want to call it. It's behind closed doors. Nobody's going to be able to see it except for the players and the technical staffs. That's happening in Bradenton, Florida today. Don't know what will come out of it. Don't know if there will be any video. Sometimes there are coming out of these things, if there's any highlights. Sometimes you get quotes from the manager or the players or such. So we'll see how this goes down, but be on the lookout for that today. That's the first competition for Atlanta United in preseason. And with that leads us to our Friday flashback question. And this one requires a little bit of thought, and it might require a little bit of strategy out of you. So we're doing the all-time greatest Atlanta United team, but when you pick a player, you have to pick their best season. It's not just, Joseph Martinez. Well, I mean, he's been the primary striker for the team from day one. But which season of Joseph Martinez is going to make this team? So you have to think about it that way. And no, you can't pick like 3 seasons of the same player in different spots. It's one player, one season, that's it. So you can pick the shape. I actually went back and forth about it, and I settled into a shape based off the group of players that I had. So I want to see what people come up with here. You pick the shape, you pick the player, you pick the year. Let us know on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. There's some tough decisions. There's tough decisions on some of the individuals. Which year of Joseph, which year of Brad Kazan, which year of Miguel Almiron, 17 or 18. These types of things. It's going to be a fun discussion as we get going today. So tweet at us at Soccer Down Here with your thoughts on that. Yesterday, Chicharito spoke to the media in Los Angeles. It was insanity, as pretty much anything around Chicharito is going to be. He provided a little more clarity about the retirement comment that got everybody in a tizzy. It's complicated. I think when people took the line out, they were definitely losing the context of what he was saying. I don't think it's disrespectful to say that this is a new era for his career, and it's a different era. And yeah, he's 31. I mean, this is kind of the first step to winding down because he's not in Europe anymore. And as much as I want to see MLS get to a point where it is on the same plane and perceived to be there, it's not. It's getting there. It's made huge strides. And one thing that Chicharito said, I don't think it was yesterday. I think it's something he said throughout this process. In Europe, more people are paying attention to MLS than Liga MX. And that's maybe a bit of a change. I think MLS has an advantage because of the language. There's just more English spoke in Europe across the whole. That helps. I think also the names that have come into MLS have helped make it front of mind for a lot of people. This is an interesting move because this speaks to a different community. And I just don't think MLS has ever spoken to the Mexican-American community in a way like this. I mean, day one you had Jorge Campos, who was a huge star at the time, but goalkeepers are a little bit different, and he's not your average goalkeeper, I know, but still, it's a little different. MLS was so new and figuring things out at that time, too, that they couldn't really truly capitalize on it. I think where Beckham was the door opener just in general of superstars at a different level, Blanco was kind of that at the time, but I don't think MLS was ready to truly capitalize on it. Now they are, and they should be, and the LA Galaxy should be figuring out every way to capitalize on this, and MLS should as well. TUDN will be. Univision will be. It's a huge, huge deal. And it's been really interesting to see the responses to this nationwide. You know, you get some people who say that this is the biggest move MLS has ever made, and you get some who say that it's not even that big of a deal. The reaction has been all over the place, and honestly, that's kind of been the story of Chicharito's career too. You know, he was a player who got a lot of attention before he was a superstar in Mexico. I mean, he played one full season at Chivas before going to Manchester United. He went very early. And there was some bitterness towards that. There was some, he hasn't paid his dues, that kind of comment going around. He's a player who, is very emotional. It's obvious to see how he's feeling on the field. That can be good and bad. Some people don't like that. Some people don't like that at all. So, with his moves in Europe, where he's had a good career, but not the career that people thought it would be when he got started, I think there's still a lot of questions around him. And I think from an analytical look at this, people have those questions. From a personal feel here, he's a little polarizing. I don't think he should be. I honestly have never truly understood dislike for the guy. I mean, he's a hard worker. He is scrappy. He grabs your attention on the field. He's the kind of player I like. He's a goal scorer, but he's also a goal scorer who will put in the work for the team. It's not just what we saw out of Zlatan for the Galaxy the last couple of years, where everyone else has to defend for him. It's not going to be the case here. He's going to work. He's going to make the runs off the ball. He's going to bring others into the game. He's going to do the defensive work. If Guillermo Barros Escoloto wants to press, he's got a forward who can help him with that now. He's I think a player that deserves respect. And I think he's a player who's always craved it because he hasn't always gotten it. So it's a really interesting story with him coming here, and the coverage is going to be fascinating because he is a superstar in Mexico at a level that I don't know if there's been another one like him, because he's just the combination of all of it. He's got the PR side. He knows how to handle the media. He's very open. He will talk to people, and he will tell you exactly how he feels. He's also completely comfortable speaking in English, and he's going to be completely comfortable doing English-speaking media. So it's a really interesting situation with him. And then, you to get the soccer side going, he's going to be compared everywhere to Zlatan. You can't avoid that. He is the Zlatan replacement, 100%. And he brings a lot of different things to the table, but he's also going to be expected to score a boatload of goals. And then take it to a whole nother level. Carlos Vela across town. That's going to be another basis for comparison of what Chicharito is doing and how he is doing. It's a story that I don't know if MLS could have truly handled it a few years ago when first conversations happened about maybe trying to get him. I think when he left Leverkusen and went to West Ham, it was, we'd like to get him, and he wanted to still make a go of it. I don't think it would have been as impactful then. I think now MLS is at a bigger stage. There's a bigger platform for him. There's a bigger platform to cover him. And there's going to be a lot to cover, John.
2 questions for you.
Yep.
Your thought on why he is so polarizing. Is it, you think, because he wears his heart on his sleeve when he's out there and is as engaged as he is out there on the pitch?
I think there's a few different layers to it. I mean, in the United States, he's a Mexican superstar, and the U.S.-Mexico rivalry is a real thing. I'm not even going to get into stupid people saying stupid things that have nothing to do with soccer about it. I'm talking about on the field. It's a rivalry. and people are going to trash the rival stars, and he's the star. He's been the star for quite a while. He's scored a lot of important goals. That plays into it. I think there's people who, because he went to Europe at a young age and with the hype that he did, people expected him to do more. And I don't think he had a bad time in Europe. I've always felt like he had some bad luck and just could not shake the super sub kind of role.
Yeah, I thought he was underutilized.
Yeah, that was where I always felt more than he underperformed. It was more of being underutilized. But people are going to criticize him for that. He is vocal. He is emotional. He catches your attention. All of that factors into it. It's a interesting one because I don't think he really, like, in terms of being polarizing, he's not the typical polarizing athlete in that he does bad things or he, gets into trouble off the field or, takes cheap shots on the field, that kind of stuff. Like, he's not that guy. I think a lot of it is persona, perception, expectation, and those things that factor into it more than actually anything he's done. It's a really weird situation, and I would love it I'd love it if somebody who can, I think, tell the story more from the Mexico side and how he's viewed there. I mean, I've looked at him as a legend. It's not done yet. I mean, his legendary status is not complete. The book's not written yet. But how he is viewed there when you compare him to other Mexican legends like Hugo Sanchez, different era, but Sanchez went to Real Madrid and was a superstar in La Liga. Chicharito wasn't that in Europe, but outside of comparing him to Hugo Sanchez, I think his European career can't really be touched. His national team career is hard to compare as well. I think it's that good. But there's going to be people who feel like he didn't live up to all of the expectation. And I'll be curious to see. It's one thing to have Spanish language coverage in the United States of Chicharito. I want to see how this is covered in Mexico to a Mexican audience and how people react to things that happen during his time with the Galaxy. That's going to be really interesting. And it's an interesting situation for the league because he has the potential to really have a positive impact or maybe even a negative impact on the perception of MLS in Mexico. And I think what MLS and Liga MX are doing and maybe heading towards is really unique in the game, in the world. I don't think you have two neighboring countries that have leagues that can benefit from each other's growth. I think Liga MX can benefit if MLS continues to get bigger and stronger. I think MLS benefits if Liga MX is strong. I think both can benefit from one another. I don't think there's two other leagues in the world that have that or could have that kind of relationship. And this is a move that can bring them together and push both forward, I think. Let's say the Galaxy get into CONCACAF next year. And you get that big, Chicharito against Club America or against his former club Chivas or Monterrey or Tigres. You get that series and you get Chicharito playing back in Mexico at the club level. That's a whole nother level of madness.
Mm-hmm.
And these are things that can happen with this. I just think the perception of him is what makes him more polarizing as opposed to something he's actually done to be polarizing.
Then is it because of that perception that lends itself to the notion that folks are saying that this signing isn't that big a deal?
Well, no, I think there's a few things that factor into that. I mean, for some, the perception is going to be people saying like, oh, well, there's other bigger players who have come from Europe and have come into MLS. That's why it's not that big of a deal. I think if you are on that side of it, you're not looking at the importance of the Spanish language market. and specifically in the United States, the Mexican-American community, which is the biggest soccer consuming community in the country, flat out. I mean, that's why USWNT pays the money that they pay for games. That's why they provide the level of coverage of the league. And it's why their ratings are what they are. I mean, over half of the soccer watched on TV in 2019 was watched on USWNT TUDN. So, if you think that it's not a big deal because he's not English or French or Italian or Spanish or didn't play strictly in top clubs and have double-digit goals and do those things, you're leaving out what he's done for Elche. You're leaving out the icon status that he has in Mexico. That's what makes this such a unique situation. He's not quite the David Beckham in Mexico, like that level of fame, but he's pretty close. He's not that far off. He has that iconic status that transcends just his ability on the field. And if you're not paying attention to that audience, maybe you don't understand that or get that as much. That level of fame that he has in Mexico factors into this.
Is Landon Donovan a decent parallel here?
No, not at all, because soccer in the United States is not mainstream enough for Landon Donovan to be iconic like that. I mean, in terms of the reaction to his soccer, yes, that's not a bad comparison, because you've had a lot of American fans who felt like Landon Donovan could have been more on the field, strictly on the field. You have some of that with Mexican fans. Yeah, that factors in some. But the level of fame, no, it's not even close, because you could go and put Landon Donovan on the Grammys, and not many people are going to know who he was. But if you put Chicharito on the Latin Grammys, it's a different conversation. Or you put him on a Mexican music award show, it's a completely different conversation. So, no, I mean, I think fame-wise, the biggest comparison from what we see is a guy like a Beckham, where at times the fame becomes more of the conversation and more of the thing that makes people react than the actual soccer. And that can be good and bad. I mean, it's good for his bank account. It's good for Q ratings. It's good for the clubs he's at. It's good for all of those things. Sometimes it makes the level of analysis of his game a little unfair, because he's a very good player. He's a very good player who's produced a lot, but maybe he hasn't produced as much as his fame might make you think that he would.
Nathan Pugh says, I don't like him because he's Elche and he played for Man U, double secret probation.
But see, that's the thing, and Nathan is probably halfway joking. I mean, the Manchester United thing factors in. But yeah, there's American fans who'll be like, well, I don't like him because he plays for Mexico. And that's part of it. That's fine. I mean, it's not a situation, and I think this is where the league and maybe fans and maybe media needs to understand, you don't have to like him. I think it's honestly good if there's a lot of people who don't, because he's not playing for the league. He's playing for the LA Galaxy. LA Galaxy fans should be thrilled. And even if you're, a hardcore U.S. men's national team fan and a Liverpool fan or anybody who hates Manchester United, or a Barcelona fan and you hate anybody who came from Real Madrid, if you're an LA Galaxy fan, you should be thrilled about this. If you are an LAFC fan, no. But then this is where all this gets complicated, and this is where people start to judge, and this is where the gatekeeping comes in. If you are an LAFC fan and you are a Mexican fan, you're going to be torn. And I've seen, LAFC fans, talk about their love for Chicharito. He's been their favorite player. Now he plays for the team across town, and they're conflicted. They're really happy he's in town. They're really happy about it. But then you get other LAFC fans who are not in that boat, not Mexican national team fans, not Chicharito fans, And you're like, no, you can't like that he's there. You can't be happy about it. And it's like, no, it's complicated. That's what happens with this league because of the nature of the game in this country. Because everybody has different touchstones. You know, I mean, like Nathan Pugh's Liverpool fan, you know, hardcore U.S. fan. Okay, he's not going to like this. If he was a Galaxy fan, he might have some conflicted feelings about it. And then once you see the player for your club, changes it. If you are a fan of the Houston Dynamo, Chicago Fire, you're going to be happy to see Chicharito. If you are a Mexican fan. If you are not, you might not be happy to see Chicharito, and you can boo him. That's where the U.S., the polarizing nature of him in general, and it's far more positive with Mexico, don't get me wrong. But there is a bit of a, well, he didn't live up to the hype, or, well, you know, he's a big superstar, blah, 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 blah. Well, it's only going to get accentuated in the United States because we've seen this before. Big superstar comes in, he goes to Houston opening day. There's going to be a lot of Chicharito jerseys in that building. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing. The Dynamo need to understand that and exploit that for everything it's worth. Because the next time he comes into that building, it should be different. But the first time, you're talking about a player that people idolize. So it's okay. You know, he's not coming into Atlanta this season, but next season you will see Chicharito jerseys in the stands. And again, that's okay. It was the same thing with Club America. When they came in, I don't think people understood how many Atlanta-based Club America fans are also Atlanta United fans because now they have a team in their own city to go see week in, week out. Leads to conflicted feelings at times. Leads to very unique situations. It's all part of it. That's this country. That's this country's soccer especially, is you've got all these different elements that factor into it. The emotion is a huge part of this, and you never want to take away from it. But when you start talking about impact of this player, what he does on the field, what he can do off the field on the bottom line, you've got to separate personal feelings, personal rivalries, and those things from it to actually analyze it. I think this is the perfect move the LA Galaxy could have made. With Zlatan gone, this was the signing. If they had signed Rogelio Funes Mori, great player, it would have helped them on the field. I think he would have done very well in this league. I think he would have attracted some fans, for sure. But nothing like this.
No.
And I think Chicharito will produce on the field, and I think he will be a huge factor in the LA Galaxy having a good season. They got to figure out how to defend. There's other questions they have. You know, don't get me wrong, he doesn't fix everything. But he will produce. He should produce anyway, let's put it that way. And he has a level of fame that there's nobody else they could have signed. Realistically. Because you're not getting Messi, you're not getting Ronaldo. There is nobody else that could have had this kind of reaction for the LA Galaxy. Nobody. And that's the thing that you have to understand with this is a unique one. It's kind of like Beckham at that time when 31, Chicharito's 31, they were at a situation where they felt like it was time to leave. Beckham was at Real Madrid. He had the opportunity, as he thought he was winding his career down, to go on this adventure. For Chicharito, it's a little more personal. He gets closer to home, closer to family. But he was at Sevilla and wasn't playing. Beckham felt like his days were numbered at Madrid. Beckham's was really interesting because he made the signing at this time, but then stayed for the rest of the season. And Fabio Capello pitched a hissy fit when it was announced and said that Beckham would only train with the reserves and would never play for Madrid again. Well, then he had a bunch of injuries, and Beckham, worked his tail off in training and got back into the team and helped them win the La Liga title for the first time in a while. So it was a really weird run with Beckham because he didn't come in till the summer. Chicharito was at Sevilla and wasn't playing. And he's made that clear. One of the major reasons for this is he gets to go to a club, a good club, at a good level, and play. because he wasn't playing at Sevilla. And he was, honestly getting disrespected at Sevilla. Copa del Rey matches against third division teams, he's coming on as a sub for 10 minutes. He's getting dropped to missing the 18 for matches. It's like, that's why'd you buy him for what you did if you were going to do that? Didn't make a whole lot of sense. So he was out the door. And the Sam Stejkal piece at The Athletic is great to get into the behind the scenes of this. They didn't think it was going to happen a couple of weeks ago. And things changed very quickly. He got angry because of the way he was being treated at Sevilla. And things came together very, very fast. And that's how these moves can go sometimes. So the Galaxy had identified him. They didn't think they could pull it off. Things changed, and they put everything into it because it's that kind of a deal. It is the kind of deal that door opens, you're sending everybody on the private jet, you are getting there as fast as possible, and you are figuring it out because it's that big of an opportunity. They could not have matched this move with anybody else realistically. Anybody else in the world.
And those early appearances outside the city of Los Angeles, Houston to start things off, Miami, Minnesota, Philadelphia, Toronto. And that's
anywhere. That's the thing that I don't know if everyone understands is, does Minnesota have the Mexican American community that Houston does? No, it doesn't. But are they going to show up? Yes. Mm-hmm. Because this is the kind of player that if you are within 3-4 hours, you're going to drive and you're going to get tickets and you're going to get in that building and you're probably going to pay a lot of money for tickets if you have to buy them on the secondary market because you're not going to miss it because he's that icon.
And when he goes into these markets, that's the other part that I'm going to see. I want to see who's wearing the Galaxy jersey. I want to see who's wearing the El Tri jersey. I want to see who's representing Chicharito. And then I also want to see in return the point that we've made repeatedly. How do these teams capitalize on that bump when he comes in the door? How do they capitalize? How do they work off of that? And how do they continue to bring folks in the door when Chicharito is not the star that's going to be coming in to play your team?
That's what I'll be curious to see is how they try to convert these fans who might be sampling your product for the first time and giving them a reason to come back. That's what I want to see what Houston and Minnesota and other teams do. The Galaxy side of it, I think you'll see some people buy Galaxy Chicharito jerseys because it's a big deal, and they might not be a Galaxy fan. They might become a Galaxy fan, and that's another element of this. I think what we've seen in Atlanta with fans traveling from Atlanta and from all over the Southeast has started to lead, and Atlanta's success and all the different things, has started to lead to people in other areas who don't have an allegiance to the local team or aren't in a market with a local team adopting Atlanta as their team. That happens. I think Atlanta on the road has drawn the most true Atlanta fans because Joseph, Almiron, Tito, these players don't have that draw like a Chicharito. Like you're not seeing a bunch of Venezuelan national team jerseys for Joseph Martinez. You're seeing Atlanta United Joseph Martinez jerseys. I think this will be a little different. You'll see a lot of Chicharito jerseys, and you could see some Galaxy ones in different markets, but it's more about him, and I want to see how that changes. Does the Mexican community in the United States, who doesn't have an allegiance to an MLS team already, does the Galaxy become their team? Do they start to create that nationwide and honestly full continent type of fan base here?
Yeah.
Are they able to do that? Or are these local markets able to do the opposite and say, yes, you came for Chicharito. We're happy he's here too. It's great. We want to beat him. We don't want him to score a goal against us. By the way, come back. We've got 2 tickets for you for the next game, or we've got a free shirt for you, or we've got this, or we've got that. We want you to become a fan of us, blah, 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 blah. I want to see how that gets managed because I've felt like in the past with Beckham especially and other stars as they've come in, there hasn't been that thought going into these situations. And I hope now that as the league has matured that you're starting to get more of that, because there are markets that could benefit from it. You're going to get people at the stadium in Houston that have maybe never come to a Dynamo match before, that might live within 30 minutes of the stadium. Now you've got a captive audience. What are you going to do with it? And on the Galaxy side, how are they going to continue to try to grow their large audience? Because they have a large fan base. But how are they going to continue to grow it? Because now they're pushed in different ways. They have to push to stay relevant in Los Angeles and in Southern California with LAFC. But they also have other big brands in this league. They're not the big Hollywood club by themselves anymore. And that's going to be interesting to see. So you've got a lot of different tracks going from this that are going to make for some very fascinating case studies in 2020.
We have folks who have responded to the Friday flashback question. We have other questions on the board. What else is on your mind?
Let's get into the Friday flashbacks.
Okay. Have a couple who have chimed in this morning, and Nathan, he says he strongly dislikes the 3-5-3, so he had a 4-3-3, and then he corrected himself. He's like, if it was a 3-5-3, that meant no keeper. He dislikes it so much he can't even type it correctly.
Yeah, you could have just helped him out and not put him on blast like that. But okay, fine. Nathan, at OSG Nelson if you want to yell at him for yelling at your typos.
All right, so here's what he's got. We'll start at the back. Well, actually, he'll start on the touchline. He says, Frank DeBoer on the touchline, at me.
Okay.
In net, 2019 Brad Gazan.
Okay.
His back line.
Yeah. Just go ahead and read through it.
2018 Greg Garza, 2018 Michael Parkhurst, 2019 Miles Robinson, 2018 Escobar. Midfield, all 2018s, Nagbe, Almiron, and Lorenowitz. Up top, 2017 Tito, 2018 Joseph, 2018 Gressel.
Okay, mine's a little different so far.
Okay. And we also have Ricky Ricardo with a 4-2-3-1. In net, 2018 Brad Gazan. At the back, 2017 Garza, 2018 LGP, 2019 Miles Robinson, 2018 Escobar. Midfield, it is, let's see, he's got 2018 Rometty, 2018 Nagbe, then his 2017 Tito, 2017 Yamil Assad, 2017 Miggy, and then Joseph 2018 up top.
Got a few similarities there.
Shiva has come in with hers this morning. 2019 Brad Gazan. She's got a 3-4-3. 2018 LGP, 2019 Miles, 2018 Franco Escobar. Midfield, 2018 Garza, 2018 Nagbe, 2019 Lorenowitz, 2018 Gressel. 3 up top, 2018 Miggy, 2019 Joseph, 2017 Tito.
Okay. There's definitely a few that I think are pretty easy picks, and they're consistent here. But there's some tough decisions.
And I think I went with a 3-5-2.
Okay.
In trying to piece this out. I had 2019 Brad Gazan.
Yeah, I think that's consistent. I heard a 2018 in there, but I had 2019 Brad.
Then my 5/3 at the back, I had 2017 Greg Garza.
I did too.
2018 LGP.
Yep.
2018 Jeff Lorenowitz.
I've got him in midfield, but yes.
2018 Michael Parkhurst.
I went with the 17 variety.
Okay. And then 2018 Franco Escobar.
You left one out that I have a problem with, but we'll continue.
All right. Then I've got 2017 Miggy, 2018 Nagbe, 2017 Gressel. I went with his Rookie of the Year.
I have none of those.
Okay. And then 2018 Joseph, 2017 Tito.
Okay, I have both of those. So I ended up going 3-4-3 because of the tough decisions. So Nathan Pugh can be angry. Brad Gazan in goal, the three center backs, LGP from 2018, Miles from 2019, and Parkhurst from 17. Yeah. Wing backs, I went with Garza from 17 and Gressel from 18. Midfield, the two central, I went with Lorenowitz and Almiron, both from 18. Okay. Then on the left side, Yamil Assad from 17, Tito from 17 on the right, and Joseph from 18. I definitely considered Escobar from 18, and I ended up, because Gressel's 2018 was so good, I put him in that spot. Garza played the most in 2017. That's one reason I went with him there, because it's been a lot of cast of characters on the left side because of injuries. Right. Honestly, the right side has been that at times too, and that's one reason I went 3-4-3 and put Gressel in as a wingback. I liked Almiron's 2018 better, double-digit goals and assists. Tito had that in 17. Jeff played every match in 2018, started all but one. That kind of put him over the hump for me in that year. And on the left side of the attack, Assad, and specifically the assist that he had in 2017, got the nod. Pitty's 2019 honestly wasn't that far off, and right. I know a lot of people probably would argue that. It was a tougher decision. I think Yamil was more consistent in that season, and that's why he gets the nod. So Joseph, I think, was honestly more complete in 2019. It's just hard to not put a 30-goal season in there. So that's why he gets there for me. From a coaching performance, I'm actually with Nathan, because I think DeBoer had so much more to deal with in 2019 than Tata had in 17 or 18. I think 17 there were no expectations. I mean, it was the year was great. I don't think people felt, until you got to the playoffs and the way that match played out, I don't think people felt disappointment in the way the season went. I think it was a blank slate. 2018, there was expectation, and you met it, and you did have adversity at times. You did have injury issues to deal with at times, but not to the degree of 2019, where you were coming in as a new manager. Almiron was gone. Pitty was coming in. That wasn't as smooth as anybody would have hoped in terms of Pitty hitting the ground running. You had to deal with that. You got the best out of him by the end of the season. That's important. Barco started out great, got injured. Escobar, you didn't have day one. You had all the injuries on the left side. You had so many different injuries that happened that it was a lot of mixing and matching and figuring it out, on top of just the complications of coming in after 2 years and being the new guy in charge and figuring all of that out on the fly. So I think from just a true coaching performance, I'll give it to DeBoer in 2019, because I think he had more to deal with, still had them as the third best team in the league in the regular season, and won 2 trophies. So he gets it for me, so he would be on the touchline. But yeah, there's definitely some tough decisions, and there's some with individual players and their best year, but there's also some as you try to fit an 11 that actually makes sense. I'm very proud that a lot of people recognize the holding midfield, and it wasn't just all defenders and attackers. There was a lot of love for Jeff Lorenowitz in 2018.
My decisions were Gazan 19-18, Miggy 17-18, and then Parkhurst and Miles was another one of my decisions that was pretty much okay. How do I quantify and qualify what I did? But yeah, I had like 3 or 4 where I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I fit all this stuff in and pick one player over a certain year as opposed to a player over a player.
Yeah, I thought Parkhurst was so good in 17 when he came in. That first year was so good from him that I had to put him in here somewhere. And Robinson's 19, I think, might be the best defensive season of any of the years at center back. I could honestly say that his 19 might be better than LGP's 18, Parkhurst 17, and any other years you want to throw in. I think it was that good. Gressel's 18, I think, with 14 assists was outstanding. And Tito's 17 was an easy one for me. That went on there straight away. Joseph's 18 was an easy one. The toughest decisions I had were the right side, and when Gressel's 18 was a pretty easy pick, then it was where does he go in my team? Yeah. So how do I fit him in? On the left side, Garza 17 was a little bit by default. I mean, he had a good year, don't get me wrong, but it was slightly by default because you think to 18, Garza had injuries, McCann played on the left side a lot, Ambrose played on the left side a lot, got injured. 19, I mean, it was a rotating cast of characters, so to have a left-sided wing back and try to actually have a real shape, I had to go Garza 17. Yeah,
so that was what I was trying. I was trying to stick to as best a shape as possible and keep folks locked into those positions as best I could, and instead of just sitting there and saying, okay, lumping defenders in the back, regardless of where you were, lumping midfielders in the middle and forwards up top.
Yeah, I mean, that's the easy way to do it. So, I don't know. It's not easy. I'll be curious to see what other ones we get this morning. What other questions are on the floor?
Shiva, how about Atlanta United drawing so many new fans yesterday? Anyone see the interview from Fox 5 this morning?
Yeah, I mean, ATL UTD Pup has been everywhere. I'm sorry, I was cracking up when the whole thing came out after the Mulroney signing, and there's another cryptic Darren Eales tweet, and everybody's trying to figure out barking FC and what it could be referring to, and it's literally a puppy. It's so cool. It's a great partnership. I mean, when you get past just puppy, this is great. It's a great partnership. It's a great program. I think it's smart on so many different levels, but just the partnership aspect of it is great. So we'll hopefully have a little bit more about that side of it as we go on SDH over the next few weeks and dig into a little bit more of actually what's going on with Spike and what we'll see from Spike. I just hope Spike gets to join us in the radio booth at some point this season.
Oh, yeah. And then he'll want to play and distract both you and Mike from doing the job.
We have to do our jobs.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to be key.
Maybe on the air. I didn't say I'm going to be playing with Spike and tossing him a ball during the game. I said just come into the booth. I mean, he can come in before we go on air. He can come in at halftime. There's different ways we can make this work.
And I give Spike a lot of credit that he is learning not to use his hands from the certain play times that we've seen so far. He's keeping his hands at his sides, unless he's being trained to be a keeper. But I don't know that yet.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Jeremy York and our friends at Impact. Morning, sirs. # Friday Fun Day.
Yes,
of all of
hopefully.
The players and coaches you've interviewed, who is your favorite from Atlanta United and non-Atlanta United to talk to? Have a good weekend.
Okay. Who are you going to go with here?
Wow. I think for me, it's always fun to hear Jeff Lorenowitz in post, and so for me, he's one of my favorites. I always love talking to Stephen Glass. I am kind of partial to Atlanta United too, since we get to interact with them. Non-Atlanta United. Wow. I'm going to have to think about non-Atlanta United.
Well, you've got all kinds of sports to pull from. So.
Oh, I was thinking specifically just soccer.
No, you've got a whole wide range of knowledge.
Oh, players and coaches that we've interviewed. Wow. I mean, obviously, you can get into high school stuff and all the stories that I get to do there. I remember getting yelled at by Lawrence Phillips covering a Grey Cup one year.
That's not good.
He was apparently the entire season when he was playing in Montreal, he thought he was being disrespected by the media about whatever, lack of yards and lack of impact, lack of output, whatever. Montreal goes and wins the Grey Cup. And so he felt compelled, along with his offensive lineman, to stand on his chair in front of his locker and berate all of us. about how we were not giving him the proper amount of respect the entire season, and now that he's won a championship, and pointing fingers, and there were certain choice words that were associated with that. For me, it was an interesting interview setting. Is it one of my favorites? No, but it was one of the more interesting interviews that I got to conduct.
Okay. Well, the question was positive. You took it negative. I'm going to assume that's the Mountain Dew thing again.
Probably.
Favorites. Good
favorites.
Things.
There's
Not
always
Lawrence
the Super
Phillips.
Bowl media days where you get to kind of go off the board and not be in the scrums and stand 35 deep and asking the same questions and hearing them every 5 minutes. Super Bowl media day. What I wanted to do one year is see if any of the players had a degree in communications in radio and television. And then after interviewing them, give them the microphone and then watch them interview their teammates. And so it was like a cause and effect. And it was Roland Williams of the LA Rams. It was the Titans Rams, St. Louis Rams at that point. Just dated myself. The Titans Rams Super Bowl at the Georgia Dome. So for that media day, interviewed Roland, exposed the fact that he had his communications degree from the University of Missouri. And then I said, okay, tell you what, we got 10 minutes left in the session. We're going to follow you around, go interview your teammates. And so he's jumping in scrums, going around the sides. He's just doing a bunch of fun stuff. So that was an interview that turned into seeing somebody else do interviewing. So that was like a two-step. That was another fun one.
Okay, that's a little different.
Hockey players are the most accessible ones, and they're the ones that'll give. Yeah, I mean they will tell you anything and everything, and they will not hold back. So from a content standpoint, those are always fun, and they're more than happy to take a camera and go on a parade and shoot it for you, and then hand you the tape. That was always fun. Remember when the Knights won the Turner Cup back in the mid-'90s?
Yes.
Gave one of the players a camera for the parade route, and so had him do the interviewing just as like man on the street, wandering up and down the parade route, hopping off the fire truck, going into restaurants, interviewing pizza folks on Decatur Street, that kind of stuff. So sometimes you can get a good cause and effect by doing an interview and building up a relationship with a player. And then they'll do stuff like that. And so it's a good cause and effect sometimes, too.
Okay. I'm trying to think of who would have been good for that from Atlanta United in the parade. There might have been too much serving of beverages.
Yeah.
Beverages. Well, he had the sign, and the sign, his requests of beer being sent to him were delivered. So maybe not. But in terms of an interview, yeah, Jeff is high on the list for me. Just such a smart soccer guy, and I think he can break things down really, really well. Parky's always great too. He's super genuine, very down to earth. Doesn't feel like it's a put on. Doesn't feel like he's playing the PR game. Just feels like he's talking to you. Others that I've really enjoyed, Mikey Ambrose was always a good interview. It was always good when we had him on either post-game or had a chance to catch up with him separately. Andrew Carlton's a good interview. Andrew Carlton is very good in that world and speaking to media, very smooth, very open too, and comes off as very genuine in those situations. So I've always enjoyed the opportunities talking to him. You mentioned Stephen Glass. Glass, he's always fun to talk to, whether it's on a mic or not. Just about soccer and about the life in soccer in general. So those are guys who stand out. The ones outside of the Atlanta United world that I've enjoyed the most, honestly, when I've done high school sports coverage and written about Henry County and Clayton County football or basketball, interviewing some of the players who are guys you'd never know, players who some of them went on and played in college, some of them didn't, but just their excitement about being interviewed. And the ones who maybe didn't expect it and interviewed and then were really good at it and really opened up a little bit, but also didn't say crazy things either. Like, they opened up, but they also were smart about it. It was fun to see, just that excitement of it. Those are the ones I enjoy. I like interviewing people that maybe are not expected. Like, everybody wants to hear from the superstars. I like talking to people and telling stories, maybe more behind the scenes or more supporting cast, because sometimes those can be the really interesting tales.
Yeah, because when you come up to them, their first response is, well, why are you wanting to talk to me? Because a lot of times they just don't get talked to for whatever reason. And then you can sit there and say, well, I wanted to ask you about this particular thing. And then I think they appreciate the fact that you're coming to talk to them about something that they were an integral part of, and that you're understanding the depth of a particular event.
Yeah, maybe it's a little more meaningful. Maybe it's that unexpected nature of it. I think sometimes you can just get more interesting nuggets that way.
Yeah.
Because everybody's going to go talk to the superstar, but you might be able to find a piece of the story that wouldn't have been there otherwise. And
for me, that's the fun part, is always going on the treasure hunt, I guess, is probably the best way to describe it, is trying to sit there and it's like, all right, we know what went down, but then you sit there and you'll see something and you go, okay, I want to go down that road. And then you get answers, and you talk to folks that may not necessarily have been first in mind when it comes to chasing after a topic and getting answers. But a lot of times those are the folks that are the most thoughtful when it comes to giving you an answer. It's not the PR straight up 20-second soundbite of everything that you've heard before. And that person gets to open up for the first time, probably.
One that was fun that we did last year, Mena and I from 92.9 went to the Delta Travel Goals event, and we had a chance to interview Franco Escobar. And not honestly much about soccer. It was about, favorite kind of music, favorite kind of food, places he's been in Atlanta that he's enjoyed, stuff like that. And it was kind of cool once he kind of realized, like, oh, this is fun. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a pressure-packed interview of, why did you not play well last game, or why did this happen? It's like, no, what kind of music do you listen to? Who grabs the boombox in the locker room? That kind of stuff. It was fun.
Yeah. Kefsi has come in with the 11s without years attached.
Oh, no years. No, see, okay, no. You got to go back to Kefsi, and you got to tweet at Kefsi and say, I need years attached to this. You have to pick a season. That's what makes it difficult. So
I'm typing this out right now.
We're not going to put people on blast. We're not following instructions. Kefsi will be able to think about this and submit a proper answer.
All right, so I'm responding back. We need years attached to this roster, please.
There you go. Good job.
So that is heading back Kefsi's way. So Kefsi can now figure out years attached to the 11 that are on the sheet.
Man, ATL UTD Pup is everywhere today. It's on HLN right now.
Far out.
Robin
well, I mean, there are
other
teams that are attached. I know in the National Hockey League, you have the Islanders who do it. The Washington Capitals have done it, and it took me forever to realize when it comes to Spike and the kind of dog that Spike is, the golden retriever, Spike. It took me forever to figure that out. I know you're shocked.
Good times.
You can't be shocked by that now.
No, not at all.
And let's see. I think. Before we end hour number one, shout out to everybody who has hopped into the timeline to wish us a happy birthday / anniversary. It's a lot of folks chimed in after the show yesterday and have worked their way forward and wished us a happy 4th. And obviously, guys, we couldn't have done it without you. And it's very humbling to see the response on the timeline and all the shout outs and all that kind of stuff. So thanks to all of you, and for being a part of all of this growth as we head into year 4.
Yeah, it's kind of wild that we've done over 1,000 of these, and we've gotten to the 4th anniversary of the start of the show. It's just wild looking back at all of it, because I was going back through the kind of dates in Atlanta United's history, and today is the day that they had their first training session in 2017. This was when camp opened down in Bradenton in 2017. So, you're getting to that point where it's not 1 year in the books or, a couple years in the books. Now you're getting to year 4. Now it's just a thing. It's not about like year 1, year 2, year 3. It's just Atlanta United 2020. Like, that's just what it is. It exists, and there's history that's growing and building, and it's cool to be some small part of all that. So thanks to everybody who listens and makes that possible and spreads the word and tells everybody about it and gets hats, because there are hats that are
there you go.
in the mail, and there are hats that people are wearing on their head right now, which is pretty cool. So thank you. We're going to take a quick break, come back, get ready for hour number 2 right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Apolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, SDH, January 24th. It's a Friday flashback asking for your all-time greatest Atlanta United team by the season. So you pick a player and their best year on the team. You can't put a front line of Joseph from 2017, 18, and 19 across the front. You can't do that. One player, you get 1 year, and then you have to make it fit into some kind of a shape. You're not shoehorned into one. We've seen 3-4-3s, we've seen 3-5-2s, we've seen 4-2-3-1s, wherever you want to go with it. But pick the player and pick the year and send it over to us on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. All right, we talked about Chicharito to open things up, and we talked about how he is polarizing. And this is a big reason why. So David Feitelson, who's on ESPN Deportes, he tweeted yesterday at 6:12. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. So David has 3.5 million followers. Big deal. He tweeted yesterday at 6:12, "Today's Chicharito lacks a bit of humility. That's it. Just
Okay.
putting him completely out there on blast. Chicharito did not let this go. About an hour later, tweeted and said that this is translated, that David, with the respect and admiration that I have for you, I do not agree that I lack humility. If you think that I have the third best career in Europe so far, then what I said is not a lie or arrogance. And I'm guessing it's something about his stature and was he the best Mexican in Europe and these kinds of things. Chicharito said, humility continues to be confused. Fuerte abrazo. This is what I'm talking about. This, like, could you imagine, I'm trying to think, because Stephen A. Smith has called people out in these situations.
Skip.
Skip's a clown, and we all know that. Skip's playing radio on TV and playing like 1980s wrestling heel characters. Like that, he is completely obvious in playing a game. And look, they play it well because the it's the whole thing, and especially the gifs from Sharp. That's maybe what makes that whole show at this point is the reaction from him. So, all right, they've found their thing. Maybe Stephen A. tries not to be as transparently a character, kind of, a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong for giving him a little more respect. I don't know.
We have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok, and flat out deceived.
Well, maybe not. Maybe
the New York Knicks are terrible.
I don't know, but have either one of them come out and said that a player lacks humility? Like, because that's not playing a game. That's not saying a team's terrible. That's not saying somebody played bad. That's kind of a attack on somebody's character.
That sounds like personal. Something Colin Cowherdy.
Yeah, maybe.
Because
it's not that.
Because I'm trying to take it away from the '80s heel or mouthy manager and trying to apply it to a personality. Where is it Jim Rome-esque? Is it Colin Cowherdy? Because that they are sports talk.
Is this thing on?
See, yes, he's chiming in there, I guess.
Yeah, see. But, because when you look at Stephen A., when you look at Max Kellerman, when you look at, what's-his-face, Clay Travis, when you look at Skip, when you look at Shannon Sharp, those, to me, we know are parody/caricatures of sports talk hosts, and they're doing it a certain way. I think that if you look at, like, a Cowherd or a Rome or, maybe a PTI-ish kind of a Tony and Wilbon, that might be kind of where I would be.
I don't think they go there. Like, I don't think they start saying LeBron lacks humility as much. I guess maybe LeBron has actually crossed into this conversation a little bit, and it's been about, like, I saw a lot of criticism in some of these circles about him jumping around and dancing around at his son's game or something when his son scored a goal or scored a basket, so it was a big thing. But it's pretty rare. It's not that common, and that's if that's the comparison. If we're going to go with LeBron in this, you're talking that kind of an iconic player. That's what Chicharito is. And if you don't follow how he gets covered, how he gets talked about in Mexico or in Spanish language media, you might not pick up on that. You might just think it's a Mexican national team player coming to MLS. No, he's to the point where you've got like major pundits like saying he lacks humility. So that's the world that Chicharito lives in. That's where this is, and that's the type of stuff that's going to happen with this move coming to the LA Galaxy, coming to MLS. There will always be things talked about. There will always be things said, and you're going to get some of those things and a lot of those things being said in Spanish. Keep up with it as best as you can to understand the full story and full impact.
Yes. That's key here because, you're going to have a lot of outlets who are going to be camped out, and it is going to be all Chicharito all the time. And so just as a part of this, when you have all of these media sources going after one particular story, as you saw at the airport, you know how impactful this is going to be. Just kind of keep an eye, but don't get locked into one source when it comes to it.
The Philadelphia Union have agreed to a 1-year deal with Ilsinho. He is back.
Okay. All right.
His, I think, sister on Twitter was kind of going in on the Union's management at times in this past week about other guys getting paid and different things. Ilsinho is such a tricky one because he's a super sub. He is flat out a super sub. He is not effective as a starter. He doesn't have the energy, doesn't have the legs. He can't give you, I think, even 60 minutes at his most effective. He is strictly a super sub, and it changes the way you play. We talked about it ahead of the playoff game. You could pretty much write it in Sharpie. 60-minute sub Ilsinho's coming on, and when that happens, they're going to shift shape. They're not going to play the 4-4-2 diamond. They're going to go to a 4-2-3-1. You could pretty much write it down. It's exactly what happened. That's limiting. Now, he does a great job of transcending that. Can he do it again at, I think, 34 years old? We'll see. But I want to see how they use him. I want to see if maybe they try to find a different way to use him where it's not quite as predictable. Because it was just obvious what they were going to do. And I honestly thought in that playoff match against Atlanta that Philadelphia hurt themselves by doing that.
Yeah.
I thought they were doing pretty well in the middle of the field with their 4-4-2 diamond. They had some overloads in spots. When they shifted away from it, that's when Atlanta took control. And that's when Atlanta took control of the possession and salted the game away.
Yep.
So he's back in Philadelphia. Ilsinho resigns, according to Jonathan Tannenwald of the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Ricky Ricardo says it's the 1-year anniversary of us getting PT.
It is.
I hope we all can return to this level of optimism about our squad.
I hope people can find a level of optimism about Pitti. It's been so weird to see these reactions to him. He's a difficult player to define. I get it. And I mean, he's difficult for players for people who I think truly appreciate what he brings to the table to define at times. Because he's not a typical player. He's not I want to paraphrase Jose Mourinho here. He's not from the bottle. He's not of the bottle. He's a special one. Like, he's not typical. You're not just going to go find another Pity Martinez. You don't find those on the academy grounds. You don't find those in U12, U13, U14 teams. They come along rarely because he's a combination of technical ability, of just a confidence, just an ability to do things at a very high level, but also the willingness to try things that are crazy at times and pull them off far more often than a lot of people would. He's a game changer with that. Now, in Atlanta, I think as the year went on, I really go back to something that Nick Alifi said, referencing the Maradona documentary, about Maradona taking a year, and he talked about this in Serie A. Like, Diego Maradona went from Argentina to Spain, had injuries at Barcelona, and was coming back from an injury when he went to Napoli. He hadn't played a whole lot before that. Goes to Napoli and was good in year one, but also was not at his best. And he said it took him a year to kind of calibrate himself a little bit, find that balance between his technique, his ability on the ball, with the speed of play, with also the style of play. So you had a bunch of stuff factored into it that made it difficult for him to be at his best in year one. I think that's definitely something you can bring over to the Pitti conversation. MLS has played it a different style. The game's refereed differently. The fields are differently. The travel's different. There's a lot of things that are different. And when you're a player at that kind of level of technique, little differences can throw you off. You're not and I'm not a car guy, so correct me if I'm butchering this analogy.
I'm not either, but okay.
You're not a daily driver if you're a Pity Martinez. You're a sports car.
Yeah.
You're a luxury car. And when little things are off, you don't run your best.
You can feel it in a sports car when there's a cylinder off or when there's something wrong with the engine.
Yeah, you're not a beater that you're driving and it's getting you from point A to point B and that's it. That's not Pity Martinez. And when little things are off, he's not going to be at his best. I think he started to get calibrated properly as the year went on. I thought he was great towards the end. You go back to his last, I think 5, 6, maybe even up to 8 games. I'd have to go back and check my notes. And he was averaging over 3 chances created per game. There's not many players in the league who do that on a regular basis. He had some just audacious plays. I am expecting a good year from him. I'm expecting a top year from him. I would love to see him perform at a double-double kind of season. Double-digit goals, double-digit assists. It's twofold. I think you need somebody to pick up the slack on goals and be a secondary goal threat. You didn't really have that last year. I think Gressel was second with 5 or 6. You need more than that. You need somebody in the 10 range. But also you're going to need, more on the assist side. And I think that's the easier one of the two for Pity. I mean, he had 9 last year. I think 10 assists is a piece of cake in a league where you're getting secondary assists. So I think he'll get that. But if he can get close to 10 goals, I think this team has a great year. And I just think he's going to be better more consistently, and especially from the jump, than he was last year.
Yeah, when I've had discussions with Felipe Cardenas on the air about PT, the word that Felipe used was diferente. And he is. Absolutely. He's not a guy that's going to color inside the lines all the time. There's that the artistry that's there. And so I'm hoping that folks can continue to appreciate the artist and the brain that works with the artist. And I'm looking forward to the same things that you are in year 2 of Pity Martinez here with Atlanta United. But yeah, I've always considered Pity as an artist first and foremost on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean he's unique, and I think that uniqueness, he's going to understand how to use it, I think, more consistently to its strengths, to its strong side in 2020. It's going to be key, and he's not going to be able to do it himself. It's going to take Ezequiel Barco with another good year. It's going to take Tito Villalba. I think at times when we look at guys like Barco and Pity and their talent, like these are transcendent talented guys to me. They're at another level technically, but you get a little bit of the Darlington Nagbe effect where because they're so good, you expect them to score goals for fun and have assists for fun, and not always the case. I mean, you can have a top player in these types of roles and be in that 10-10, be in that 6-12. 8 goals, 11 assists. That can still be an incredibly effective year. And for both of them, I think Barco and Pity slant more to the assist. I think, Pity maybe is more of a goal scorer than Barco. Barco was never much of a goal scorer at Independiente. And it's not a huge sample size, but in terms of goal scoring rate, it's far higher here in Atlanta than it was at Independiente. Little bit different role. I mean, it's not the same abrupt change that Almiron had. He was truly playing in more of a box-to-box role at Lanús, not playing as an attacking option and being expected to score goals like he was here. So that took a minute, and I thought when we went to the all-time team stuff, I thought 18 was where he kind of found that balance the best. But Barco is more of a final product guy here than he ever was at Independiente, but I never think he'll be a huge goal scorer. Pitti will score more, but both can provide the assist. And when you look at the way this team will play in 2020, you know, a lot of the conversation after Julian Gressel was traded was, where do the assists come from? How do you replace his, which over his 3 years, he averaged just under 12 per year. His assists were mostly of the same variety. That cross from deeper from the right side. That's the one you think of. The overwhelming majority are crosses. Not a whole lot of through balls and passes inside the final third that are short on the ground. Those are going to be more of the assists from your Pittis, from your Barcos. How do you get there to give them more of an opportunity to impact in the final third and not be as reliant on the cross? It's going to be that build-up play. It's going to be that play through the middle of the field, through the midfield. That's where a Jeff Lorenowitz and Emerson Heineman and Eric Remedi are very important in building up the play properly. Crossing can still be part of the attacking weaponry. Franco Escobar has assisted on goals from crosses. Tito Villalba has as well. And that's one to keep in mind, that if he becomes the right winger as the team's currently constructed and he gets that opportunity, he's not putting in as many deep crosses. His crosses are more in the final third. But he's assisted on a decent number of goals from Joseph Martinez when he's been healthy. Yeah, I can think of a few straight off the top of my head. The Orlando one, which is one of my favorite Joseph goals, at the Benz in 2017, where Villalba played a driven cross low to the near post, and Joseph took it out of the air at the near post, and I think it was Bendick who was in goal at the time, beat him at the near post. It was a really difficult goal to score, but it was a great cross, and Villalba put it in a spot where only Joseph is getting to it. Things like that, you're going to have to replace the production, and that's been a big topic of conversation here. It's a big topic of conversation for Gressel in D.C. He was asked about it and asked about, the whole thing that I've seen a lot of people throwing around. Did Joseph make Gressel an effective player, or was it vice versa? Gressel said this: I know there's a lot of talk about Joseph made me look a lot better, or I had some more assists because of him. But I also think that it goes the other way. I helped him a lot, where maybe he wouldn't have scored some goals if it wasn't for me. We know Gressel's ability on the cross. I don't know if that's maybe the route that is going to play the best here. Because now what that's created is people are going to expect Ola Kamara to have a dramatic jump in his production. Because that's basically what you put on the table here with that quote. Is that, well, I created goals for this guy, so I'm going to be creating goals for the new guy. I don't think Ola Kamara is Joseph Martinez. I think Ola Kamara is a good forward in this league. I think he'll do well. But is there going to be a noticeable jump in his production? I don't think so. I think he's going to get the proper service that he wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And the biggest question about it, and this is the one that I still can't figure out, what's Ben Olsen going to do with this group? Where's he going to play Julian Gressel? How's he going to make these pieces work? Because he's got a little bit of redundancy in this team that I don't know how he manages it. So let's work from the front backwards when you're looking at DC. Ola Kamara in goal. Everybody has said that Edison Flores, the Peruvian international, will be central and behind the striker. So if you're going to play a 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, whatever you want to call it, Flores would be in the 10 role. Okay, Kamara's the forward. You have Yamil Assad, you have Paul Areola, you have Julian Gressel. I don't think, and this is my opinion, I don't think any of them are suited to play central and be as effective as they can be elsewhere. There's going to be people who will disagree and think you can play Gressel as an 8. I think if you do, you don't get anywhere near the type of production that DC paid for. And that's going to be the key here. They didn't just pay for another good player. They didn't pay for a good number 8. They paid for a guy who's going to create chances. The type of money they spent is on a guy who's going to create chances. This is a valid conversation about the Columbus side as well, what they paid for Darlington Nagbe, because he is that 8. Now, Caleb Porter has used him in different places, hasn't ever gotten like a Gressel level of production from him, but he's been more productive in the final third. Can Caleb Porter unlock something that he didn't before or put him in a role where he's going to get more? I don't really see it. Columbus is more of a finished product. DC, I think with what they spent on a transfer, trade, whatever you want to call it, and what they're going to pay him, they're not getting their money's worth if they play him centrally. And even then, okay, let's get past, like, you want to get Assad, Areola, and Gressel on the field together. In the holding midfield, you've got Russell Canals and Junior Moreno, and Felipe is there too. Now, somebody's got to play right back. They have O'Neal Fisher, who missed most of last season. They have Chris Adoy-Atcham, who has a handful of appearances in MLS. That's it. And you only have Joseph Mora on the left side, too, so you need cover there. That's a whole different conversation. Now, they did play 3 center backs at times. So, if you wanted to do that, okay, that's where you get Gressel into his best position, because his best position is as a wingback, period. I don't think he's better as a right winger in a 4-3-3 or a 4-4-2 or a 4-2-3-1. I don't think he's better as an 8 or a 10. I don't think he's a 6 at all. I think you get your money's worth on Julian Gressel as a wingback. So if that's their thinking, if they say, you know what, we paid for this new asset, we paid for this new weapon, we're going to put him in a position where we get the best, that means we're going to play Joseph Mora as the left wing back. We're going to play Birnbaum, Briant, and Donovan Pines as our 3 center backs, which I kind of like. That can work. I think Pines is an up-and-coming talent. You play Gressel as the right wing back. That's 5. Then what? Because you've got to have cover centrally. Canals would be one of them. I don't think you could pair him with Assad or Areola or Flores in that role without taking a lot away from them, and I just don't think you're very effective. So you're going to play Canals with Moreno, most likely. Maybe Felipe works into that. That's 5 and 2. You got 3 spots, and you've got Assad, Areola, Flores, Kamara. Kamara's got to play up top. Flores has got to play because he's a designated player. What are you going to do here? Areola and Assad, who are you going to sit? You've created some redundancy no matter what shape you go to. And I don't think there's a way to solve it. If these players are all on the roster, and Flores just got there, Gressel just got there, Assad just got there, Areola you've committed a lot to, and he's been a good player for you. Ola Kamara just got there middle of last season. How are you going to make it work? Because if you play Julian Gressel at right back in a line of 4, you're going to get in trouble. You're better off to play Paul Areola there, but then you're asking him to sacrifice himself to play as a right back. Maybe he will. It's not the position he plays for the national team. It's not the position he's his best. It would be better than Gressel as the right back. Defensively, it definitely would. But that is probably your best option. To get the most out of everybody is to do some version of a 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3 with Areola as your right back, Gressel as your right winger. They can overlap a lot and cover for one another, which if they get in sync can be difficult to deal with, but can also be a defensive liability. I can't wait to see what Ben Olsen does with this thing. because I wonder if DC got into a situation where, man, this player's on the market. This is a really good player to get. We've got the resources to do it. Let's go do it. And not
figure it out later.
And not thinking about, okay, this is how it's actually going to fit. Wait a minute. I don't know. But that quote that came out yesterday, I think that puts a lot of pressure on him. I think Gressel's putting a lot of pressure on himself.
Yes.
Because now you're going to be comparing two things. What is Joseph Martinez's production without Gressel, and what is Ola Kamara's production with Gressel? I'm sorry, I'm betting on Joseph.
Yep. We've had, since you mentioned Gressel, we've had a couple folks have that word in their comments this morning. I'm going to combine them here.
Okay.
Both Shiva and the Colonel have come in this morning. The Colonel saying that clearly the Gressel trade was time to draw attention away from the match day card travesty and signing of Spike, time to make us forget Gressel, which we have. Atlanta United playing chess, everybody else playing checkers. Hashtag it's Friday.
Yes, I think they completely timed everything with Spike because of the trade. I think that's absolutely 100%. Yeah, whatever.
And then Shiva. I usually don't listen to Extra Time Radio, but I did yesterday because of their take on Chicharito and Gressel. Just wondering if you guys did, and what was your take on Taylor Twellman's comments? Why do they always think we don't know what we're doing?
Yeah, I don't know. I did hear that, and I did watch most of the show. It is a common thread, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It is a common take from certain aspects of the media, and it's a little surprising. Look, I think you get down to a couple of things, just like we just talked about with DC and what they're going to do with Gressel and what it's going to look like and where he's going to play. You have to have that conversation on this side of it, too, when you start thinking about this. When you start going through it and trying to figure out, are you going to pay this money? Are you going to spend this level of money? Because you have to think about where you're going to fit everything. And that's a question, because think back to last year, for example. Gressel was at his best in the 3-5-2 late in the season. He was not at his best in other positions. That's a common theme throughout his time here. If your team as a group is best suited to play a different position, then he's not as valuable. And that's part of determining value. It's not just numbers on a sheet of paper. It's not just what he did last year or the year before or any of that. It's the whole thing. It's the whole team. So if the decision has been made that this group that we have will look its best and play its best in a 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1 type of shape, Gressel's not as valuable. In a 3-5-2, that's where I think you get the most value out of him. The thing that Twellman said that jumped out at me was, one, he went down a direction that I haven't really heard anybody else go down who's covering the CBA and stuff, acting like the allocation money that they got might not be that valuable. That doesn't make any sense. Look, you're not going to get rid of Tam tomorrow if the CBA signed, because you've already gotten into the 2020 year. You're going to convert it maybe. You might start phasing it out in 21. You're going to do some things about it if it changes, but you're not going to eliminate it and make teams figure out salary caps and such with a few weeks to spare. That's not going to happen. That was one that it was kind of insinuated. It was strange. He also halfway insinuated that Joseph wasn't happy about the deal and jumped out of it really quick. I don't know if he meant to say it. I don't know how that went down. That's unless there's personal contacts that nobody knows about. That feels like a lot of speculation. And the quotes that were made by Gressel talking about his goodbye with Joseph don't match that at all. So, I don't know. Not happy. Those quotes to me sounded the other way, that Joseph was like, well, why are you wanting to leave?
Yeah.
Because that's a key here, and that's something that has been lost in the shuffle. Gressel asked for the trade. He made it abundantly clear in his interview with Stephen Goff at the Washington Post that he wanted to go. He was not happy, and he didn't want to stay. That was made very, very clear. So there's no question about that at this point. These are not bits of speculation from people who haven't. This is Julian Gressel saying this to reporters in Washington. He wanted to go. He wanted the deal. He wanted to be traded. He even did. And this was something that wasn't, I don't think, unveiled until this. Stephen Goff wrote, to drive home his point, he had sat out one of Atlanta's first workouts.
Yep.
Now, I don't know if that first one on the Monday where he was off to the side was that. You know, Atlanta United defended him. They did not throw him under the bus in that. They said that it was fitness. If that was it, then that was it. I don't know. I don't know if there was another one. But Stephen Goff wrote that in the Washington Post. That changes the conversation a little bit to me. And it changes it should change the reaction a little bit. Because, look, if he wanted to go, and he did, he made it clear in that interview too, he did not want to wait for a CBA resolution. And that's what the team has said from day one. Is it accurate? I don't know. You'd have to ask them. That's what's been said, and it's been consistently said. He didn't want to wait. He thought that would limit his options. And he did give the team a lot of credit for getting the deal done, because that's what he asked for. So anybody trying to put it out there that he didn't really want to be traded or he didn't really want to leave, well, you can blow that out of the water. That's what was said by him in the Washington Post. Now it's going to be down to producing. So the idea, and this is maybe the one that surprised me the most from Twellman, he said it might be short money that they got from Gressel. Well, one, it is, because it's TAM. It's got to be used. It is short money, and you're not investing in it. It's different. The decision is, we're not going to invest $3 million plus in this player. We're going to take the short money to make our team better right now. Now, could that mean you're going out and getting a 22, 23, 21, even 24-year-old player who's younger, signing him to a 3-4 year deal instead of putting that towards Julian Gressel? Yeah, and that wouldn't be short money at all. That's going out and getting younger as a team, which is something you have to do. I really do think that it is a deal where everybody got what they wanted. DC gets a player that obviously they wanted because of the amount they paid for him. They think it's going to make their team better. I have questions about that. We'll see how they figure that out. Gressel got what he wanted because he wanted to go. He did not want to wait and see what happened with the CBA, which is completely his prerogative. Completely. Because, and as he said, and he's dead on, if you wait, you're later in either it's a couple weeks later if the CBA gets done as it expires, or if it goes into February, it could be much later. There's no guarantee to that. And that's going to limit the ability for teams to make the trade. Teams are going to be deeper into preseason. They might not want to make the trade at that point. It's going to limit his options. Totally understandable. He didn't want to wait. But that's the decision he made, is he didn't want to wait. So he got the trade that he wanted, and he said all the right things about DC and his happiness of going there. He thinks this is a team that can win. Okay. Atlanta got what they wanted because they got a big return on a player that there had been a minimal investment in, a player that had produced a lot, and now you've got to use that big return to go get another player who's going to produce. But you got the resolution in getting a large return for that player. I think it's one where, honestly, everybody got what they wanted. So there's really not any judging of it right now, in my opinion, until you see what Gressel does in D.C., how Atlanta plays in 2020, because Gressel might not have been as much of an option in 2020 if you're playing a different shape, because he's not as effective as an 8. He wouldn't have played as a 6 here at all, and if he plays as a 6 in D.C., I've got some serious questions. I don't think he's a right back. I don't think he's good enough defensively. I think the trade-off is not good enough. I think he's good as a right winger, but I think he's better as a wing back. I don't know if he's better as a right winger in a 4-3-3 than Paul Arriola. And that's where you're at on the DC side. I don't know if he's better as a right winger in a 4-3-3 than a healthy Tito Villalba. And that's going to be a question. So there's still a lot to have happened before you can truly evaluate this deal. Right now, everybody got what they wanted.
Shiva has come in and says that also if the $500,000 that was offered to him by Atlanta is an accurate number, it is a fair amount, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's one of the hardest things. And you've seen MLS Soccer have an article trying to evaluate the costs, and I know Dirty South has written something about evaluating it. I don't know if this is that easy to evaluate just on paper due to stats and due to salary numbers, because of the very specific positioning that Julian Gressel produced the most in. And in Atlanta's options of the way to play this year, 3-5-2 would be the way that would get the best out of him, because I don't think you even get it out of the 3-4-3 as much. I think the 3-5-2 is where you get the best out of him. 3-4-3 is close. 4-3-3 is a step back. And as a right back, no. And as an 8, no. He's a different player as an 8. He can be an effective player as an 8, but not a $700,000 a year player as an 8. At $500,000, can he be that versatile guy that plays a lot of roles and can shift around? Yeah. And maybe I'm drawing a line at a certain spot that other people would put it in different places, but with a $700,000 a year player, $700,000 plus per year, I don't think a utility player, a guy who can move around, who's really good in a couple spots and not quite as effective in others, I don't think that player is $700,000 a year. And I think when you look at the salaries, that's not the players who are getting that money. 500 would be more along the lines of that, and still even maybe a little high. But this is where, if that's the offer right now, and this is the part that you'll never know, if the CBA gets done and if the cap goes up a good bit, or things change in the way you can use allocation monies or what have you, and the team could have said, well, it was $500,000 under this cap, but now that we have more to work with, we can go up to 6. We can go up to 650. We can go to 7. We'll never know. And the other question, and I think it's a fair one because of the way some of the emotion of this has come out, would Gressel have taken less to stay in Atlanta?
Yeah.
I don't think that's ever going to get answered, but that comes into play here. Did that matter? If it didn't, there's nothing wrong with it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. He's not a hometown guy. But did that emotion factor into it? Would he have accepted less to stay? Or was it a hard and fast number, and that was what he wanted to get, and he got it? Never know. I don't think this is a move that right now anybody should be feeling bad about. He's getting the contract he wants. He's getting the long-term job security that he wants and needs. Team got a big return for him. DC gets a top player. Cool. Everybody got something out of this. Now, where it goes, is Gressel going to be performing at a 5-goal-a-year, 12 assists a year level in year 4 of this deal? Don't know. Is he going to perform at that level this year if he plays as an 8? Don't know. Is he going to be effective for the team if he's playing as a right back? Because you can look at individual numbers too, but is the team playing at its highest level? Don't know. Is it worth it to play him in his role and make others shift to get the best for the group? Don't know. And that's what we'll have to see. And you'll get to see on the Atlanta side, depending on how they play, would he have gotten to play in that preferred role as much? Now, the big thing that's come out a bunch of times is he's talked a lot about wanting to play centrally. I just don't think he's as effective there. I don't think he is going to produce as much there. So
I agree.
I don't know. We'll see. He was very effective in the postseason in 2018 in the 5-3-2 that was defend and counter. But that's not the way Atlanta would ever play on a regular basis. They did it in that postseason. And he did the job in there. He impressed me. I didn't think he could be that effective in that role, but that's not a role that you're paying this type of salary for. Not in a salary cap league. So, again, it gets back to the, we're paying you to do this. We need to play you in a position to do this. Now, can you make that work with the other talent you have on the team and get the best out of the group? That's going to be the question for Ben Olsen.
Jonas Wilson has declared this the summer of Petey, by the way.
I hope so. I would love it. I would love it if he has a massive year. And one thing that Taylor Twellman said that I think was a little dated in the way he said it, but he said that Pitti and Barco have to show up. Well, yeah, they do. And I think they both did. Barco didn't for 2019 as a whole because of injury, and Pitti didn't because it took him a while to hit the ground. It really did. But at the end of the year, he was definitely showing up. And at the beginning of the year, when he was healthy, Barco was definitely showing up, one of the best players in the league. Now, can they both be more consistent, stay healthy? That's what you're looking for in 2020. There's nothing to make you think that they can't. Injuries can be bad luck, and Barco's injuries have not been Josie Altidore hamstring injuries where it feels like a recurring thing. These have all been different things. He had I think a quad in his first training camp, and then he got kicked. There's nothing you can do with that. So, Pitti, you need him to be good from day one. Barco, you just want him to stay healthy. And if they're both healthy and they're both consistent, this team has tons of attacking quality, and that's not even getting into Tito Villalba.
Daniel Price couldn't remember if he said something, but he wanted to wish us a happy birthday.
Thank you.
And we have another couple of folks. So Kefsey has put in the lineup with years.
There we go. That's what I was looking for. All right, what is it?
Okay, from the back. It is Brad Gazan, 2019.
Okay.
Defense, Garza, 2017. LGP, 2018. Miles, 2019. Franco Escobar, 2018.
A lot of Escobar 2018s. He was probably the number 12 guy on mine.
The middle, and this looks like a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3, take your pick.
Okay.
But the middle is 2019 Darlington Nagbe, 2017 Carlos Carmona.
Yeah, that was a close one, too. I was wondering if that was going to come up. I went with Larinowitz 18 over Carmona 17, but that was another tough call.
Then your three, Tito 2017, Miggy 2018, Gressel 2018, and Joseph 2018 up top.
Yeah, so my differences would have been some of it in shape. Assad 17 got into my mix, and Parker 17 got into my mix. So,
hang on. I gave you Chris Ashley's by mistake.
Oh, well, sorry, Kefsey, and sorry, Chris.
But, so Chris Ashley made his lineup in his fresh hat, so you know
Kefsey and Chris Ashley don't even look alike. I mean,
I clicked on the graphic, and it was Chris Ashley's graphic above Kefsey's name.
You just made the list.
Pretty much. So here's Kefsey's. Now here's Kefsey's for real.
Okay, all right, Kefsey. Let's see what you came up with.
Goose 2019 / Can 2017 to 3005.
What? he's creating like hybrids.
Yeah, Kefsey created a hybrid.
Okay.
Then the back is Garza half of 2017, LGP 2018, Miles 2019, Franconia 2018.
Okay.
Then it is Big Red 2018, Nagbe 2019, and then it is Barco from 20.
Seeing into the future. I like it.
Yeah, it's Tito 2017, Miggy 2018, Joseph 2018 up top.
Okay. I'm intrigued. I want to see the Sparko 2020 season that I'm waiting on.
Yes. So my apologies to both Kefsey and Chris Ashley for crossing the streams.
Ay, Dios mío.
So, so Chris Ashley had Carmona 2017 as a part of his.
Yeah, that was one. I wondered if his name would come up. Nagbe, I just couldn't decide between the 2 years, first off, in 18 and 19. And I couldn't put him into a team like this because this is a bit of an all-star team kind of idea, right? It's not, I'm going to put this team into a game and get these games. If I'm going to put a team into a game, I'd love to have a Darlington Nagbe. But with an all-star game kind of idea here, I'll go 3-4-3 with Lorenowitz and Almiron together and with Garza and Gressel as my wingbacks. I'll get enough defensively because it'll turn into a hybrid line of four when Gressel bombs forward and Garza drops deeper because he's better defensively. Lorenowitz can protect that. I think we can make this work. And then Miggy's in a little bit deeper role, but you've got Tito, Assad, and Joseph up front, and Miggy supporting it. I'll take that. I think I can make it work. But it was just hard to put either of Nagbe's seasons above the ones that I picked in my mind. Escobar in 18 sounds like one that most people have. I didn't. Yep. I could go there. If I was going to put him in, that I would probably then move things all around and pull Assad's 2017 out. And that's a tough call. So I would probably do that and move the pieces around completely. So there you go. That's the fun of picking an all-time team and individual years for it. It's funny. I think Ian Quillen was listening to the show in the last half hour because he posted an article, and I'm sure he wrote it in a couple minutes as we started talking about it. Right. Posted at 10:21 over to MLSsoccer.com. DC United's plan to replace Wayne Rooney, Luciano Acosta, tactical flexibility. It's going to have to be that's for sure.
Yes.
So here's a couple pieces to keep in mind. Ola Kamara, he's obvious. You know what he's going to do. Record signing Edison Flores can play as a 10 or wide left. Julian Gressel typically plays wide right, but can play as a wingback or a box-to-box midfielder. Mostly a right flank player for the U.S. national team, Paul Arriola has inhabited pretty much every midfield position in his DC tenure and also played right back out of necessity. Yamil Assad is nearly capable of being Arriola's mirror image on the left. Olsen has used Felipe, Ulises Segura, Junior Moreno, and Russell Canals in multiple roles. Olsen said this: that's an exciting thing for a coach to be able to manipulate them, and also the discovery over the next month of how we tick and what's the best option to move forward to get results. But the principles are the same. It's selfless guys. It's guys that are good in transition and highly focused and have high IQs. Olsen also said this, talking about some of the changes to the group. He said, our ability to create the right culture doesn't concern me. We have a lot of guys that have been through all different aspects of this game, and I'll be relying, per usual, on them because ultimately, it's me creating culture, but it's really the leadership council, the older crew, that sometimes matters in the dressing room. I think we have a good core group. We'll pick a captain at some point, but really it's collective from some of the guys who've been around the block. So it sounds like I think it's kind of what we were saying, that they had the opportunity to go get a good player. They had the resources to do it. They did, and they don't 100% know what they're going to do going in. And that's okay if you figure it out. And that's going to be the question is, do they figure it out? And do they figure it out quickly? And that's what we'll have to wait and see. I don't know exactly how they figure it out. And somebody's going to have to sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be it. And is that going to be... Because I think it comes down to Arriola or Gressel playing in a more defensive role than they're either comfortable or would like to, or just because it's needed. I think it's going to come down to that. Because I don't think there's another way to get the best out of everybody and do it differently. Unless Assad's just going to become a depth piece and you're going to play some kind of a 3-5-2 or something and go that way, but I don't really see that either. So I think it's down to Areola or Gressel. One of them's going to have to play defensively. And neither one are exactly perfectly suited to do it. So keep an eye on that. It's going to be interesting.
We're caught up on the Dream 11s, and we are caught up on the timeline. What other news and notes do you have before we wrap up another week?
Okay, so Chris Wondolowski said this is his last season. It's good for him this year because he's not worried about a record or anything. He's got the record for all-time goals. Just wants to win. He said, whatever job is needed for me to do, I'm willing to do it. If it's come off the bench, I'll do that. If it's to be a water boy, I'll be the best water boy there is. Honestly, I'll do whatever it takes to win this year. That's a veteran. That's what you expect out of a guy like Wondolowski.
Yep.
Josh Sims, who's on loan with the Red Bulls from Southampton, it's only through June 30th, which is maybe news. Maybe I missed it. He's in a DP slot while he's here. They might be able to make it work, according to Chris Armas, and keep him. They might be able to purchase his contract at the end of the loan, but it's not a definite. They still have an open DP slot, and Armas said they might use it. This was one thing I agreed with Twellman on yesterday on Extra Time. He went ballistic about the Red Bulls being the team with the most questions, the one he's worried about the most. And yeah, there's not a lot to be excited about for the New York Red Bulls at the moment. They've got a lot of Red Bulls 2 and draft guys and guys coming in like that, and maybe Armas can mold that, but I don't know what that team ends up looking like this year. They went from record supporter shield, getting bounced in the conference final, to 6th place in the East, to I don't know if they're a playoff team. That's a little scary for the Red Bulls. Angelo Rodriguez leaving Minnesota. He is going back to Colombia. That will be a done deal. So what do they do up top? Is it going to be Luis Amarilla? Or are they going to go out and make a trade? I don't know. I still think they should be on the phone with Toronto because they could find a way to make that work. But if they're going to get Amarilla, they need to get the thing done because this thing has dragged on for a long time. Galaxy spokesman said, Chicharito, since he was signed, the Galaxy have sold roughly twice as many season tickets as they did in the comparable time frame after they announced Zlatan. That's the Chicharito effect. On the ticket side, continuing with that, the Dynamo. There's a really good piece over at The Athletic. Matt Pence wrote about the Dynamo under Tab Ramos, the new era of it, some fans still having doubts. Their president of business operations, John Walker, said that the renewal rate for season tickets is at more than 85%. It's pretty good for the year that they had last year. I mean, that's a bad year for that many people to renew. That's pretty good. He said, factor in newcomers, and the Dynamo will have more season ticket holders in 2020 than in 2019. Also good. He said, and that is the first time there has been an increase since BBVA Stadium opened in 2012. Which was the last year they were in MLS Cup final. From there, it has been a downward slide, so that's not a huge shock that this would be the first time that's happened. Needs to happen more, obviously, and we'll see if that does for the Dynamo. The Rapids are continuing with Transamerica as their shirt sponsor. It's been 5 years with them, and now this is going to be year 6. So you're keeping continuity there. You're keeping a sponsor. I would assume that they're happy with what they've been getting. This is good. One big rumor out of Miami, Estadio Deportivo in Spain is reporting that the Herons are in advanced negotiations to bring in former Barcelona winger Cristian Tello. He is currently at Real Betis. 28 years old, joined Betis summer of 2017. Over 200 first-team matches in La Liga and Serie A with Fiorentina, where he spent some time on loan. In Portugal with Porto. Mostly a left-sided player, but can play on the right as well. Be a good addition. They're talking about $12 million, which feels a little high, but a good player, a really good player. One of those guys who came out of Barcelona who didn't quite live up to what they thought he would be. And you think about one player like that who came into this league and was outstanding is Victor Vasquez. Now, Vasquez had injuries that prevented him from being as effective at Barcelona as people thought, but that's what a Barcelona product can be. Not all of them are. Not all of them end up being that, but this is a guy who's played at high-level places, higher-level places than Vasquez did before he came into MLS. Also going to be making a lot more money than Vasquez did when he came into MLS and a larger transfer fee. Vasquez was a TAM player. This is definitely not a TAM move. If they get this done, it's a great addition. Still going to be a question about who's up top, and we'll see what Miami does with that. But this is a good addition. Is it going to be a name that, you know, sells a ton of tickets and does that? No, it's not. But that Barcelona pedigree is a nice one to fall back on. So it's a good addition. It's a good addition on the field. It'll help Diego Alonso a lot. A couple other things non-MLS. In April, and there's a good article about this over at the Philadelphia Inquirer from Jonathan Tannenwald, NCAA is voting on the Sasho Cirovski proposal. He's the coach at Maryland. He has proposed to change D1 men's soccer from the 3-month fall season to span both semesters of the academic year, and this would start in 2022. You'd play 23 games instead of 25 games, so you're playing 2 less games, but you're not playing 2 games a week. You're actually going to be able to train like a normal team would. The fall half season would end at Thanksgiving. The national tournament would obviously move to the spring. I think it's a no-brainer. I think it's 100% a no-brainer. If the NCAA is actually about academics, as they like to say that they are, why would you not do this if the schools are supporting it? And according to surveys done at the United Soccer Coaches Convention, most programs are in favor of this. It's a no-brainer. I mean, how are these students going to be able to be as effective in the classroom if they're playing multiple games a week, traveling in a crammed fall semester? It just doesn't make any sense. Spread it out where they can be normal student athletes, as normal as a student athlete is, and make the product better. Now, then that creates questions, and what is MLS going to do with the draft and all these things? And they're valid questions. But for the college game, this would make it better. This would make the product better. I don't know, John, how hockey deals with this, how other sports deal with this. I think I think baseball does it, where the draft happens before players finish their season.
Yeah,
right?
June 1st.
Yeah, the draft happens before that, right?
Yeah.
So players are drafted, but they finish their season, and then they go pro.
Yeah. Or you know, you get those instances where the player's like, you know, I'm drafted and I'd like to go now. It's very rare when that happens. It's usually a first rounder, very, very high.
At a bad program.
Immediately report.
Yeah.
So, but no. You mentioned academic schedules for the student athlete. You know, back in the late 1800s when I was in school and was doing play-by-play, we would go on the road with the basketball team, and there was one stretch where it was a road stretch, and in a 2-week period, literally 14 days, we were home for 4. You're traveling for 2 games on a weekend, day before, day after, you're coming back, you're in class for a day and a half, you're out the door again, same deal. And so if you are a proponent of the student athlete, I was going to ask you what you thought about it, but you mentioned what it was. To me, it is a no-brainer that if you want student athletes to be the first part of that instead of the athlete-student, which they're kind of gravitating toward anyway, how do you want to do something like that and preserve the academic portion of that? And by splitting up the season, it makes perfect sense. We'll see if something that's perfect sense and is put in the same equation as the NCAA will make itself known.
Yeah, it feels like a no-brainer to me. We'll see if they get it done. And then the question will be, does that carry over to the women's game? It should. And then does that start to carry down to D2, D3, NAIA? Do they follow that? We'll see. U.S. women start Olympic qualifying on Tuesday. No TV yet. This is a CONCACAF thing. It's not a U.S. soccer thing. You figure out who you want to yell at. This one, you have to yell at CONCACAF. Now, CONCACAF, I believe, has said officially to reporters that they are trying to finalize this before the games start. That'd be nice. There's no U.S. network. Now, I don't know if this is all on CONCACAF. I don't know if the networks are saying we're not interested. I don't know if CONCACAF's asking for a fee that's super huge. No idea. No way to know. But the thing starts on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And don't know how these games are going to be broadcast. It starts with U.S. playing Haiti January 28th, then Panama on Friday, then Costa Rica on Monday, February 3rd. And that's all from Houston, BBVA Stadium. Don't yell at U.S. Soccer on this one. It's not their fault. This one is on CONCACAF and or the networks, and it needs to get sorted out. We'll get deeper into it. The final roster's been named. Not any massive surprises here. New faces. Andy Sullivan is back in the team. She's got 15 caps from the Washington Spirit. Your goalkeepers are the same in Ashlyn Harris, Alyssa Nair, and Adriana Franch. Defenders, everybody's back. Ali Krieger is still part of the squad. Midfield, that's where Andy Sullivan comes into it. Up top, Lynn Williams is back in the mix, and that's one that we've talked about a lot on this show. Basically replacing Alex Morgan in the forward group. Carly Lloyd is still with the group. It's a 20-player roster, and that's one thing to keep in mind when you compare World Cup roster to Olympic roster. It's a smaller roster in the Olympics, which I don't know why. Go ask the IOC. Would seem to be pretty easy, especially on the women's side, since it is a senior tournament. The men's tournament's a U23 tournament. It's a different situation altogether. The women, it's the senior teams. Why don't you just do the World Cup model with the World Cup roster size? I don't know what the justification is not to. So that's where it's at. We will hopefully have an update on Monday for you about how to watch these games. I know in the past they've ended up going through, I think the Olympics rights holder maybe either had it or had the first rights on it. And if I remember right, I've watched Olympic qualifying games on like the NBC Universal network. They're kind of Overflow Sports Network.
Yeah, the Olympic Channel.
No, it wasn't the Olympic Channel because that's not an NBC property. It was an NBC property. It was Universo, which I think has now been rebranded as Universo, which is like a bilingual.
Right.
I think that's where it ended up before. I would hope that they would jump on it if it's available, especially with the women's side. I don't know, because then the next questions from a CONCACAF perspective are, okay, you have this to get rights deals done. You have the men's Olympic qualifying to get a rights deal done. You have CONCACAF Champions League to get a rights deal done. So how's it going to go? And we will see. But we'll get deeper into the women's national team next week, what it looks like, who they'll be facing. The draw worked out pretty good. I mean, this is a group that's manageable. This is a group that they should be able to get through without too much trouble. But these are the first competitive matches for Vlatko Andonovski. So I think a lot of people will be looking at, do they play differently? How differently? Is he going to keep this group pretty much the same for the Olympics and then make changes? Or does he like where he's at and like what Jill Ellis has built and say, you know what, we're just going to continue to go from this point? We'll see.
One more line before we go.
Go ahead.
Daniel Price pulled a John and tweeted himself.
Yeah,
when he was
definitely
trying to submit his lineup.
Come on, Daniel. You know how to operate Twitter, unlike some people.
Exactly. So here's his lineup before we go. Brad 2019, backline 4. Garza 2018, Miles 2019, Parkey 2018, Franco Escobar 2018, Nagby 2018, Remedi 2018. Then he's got Miguel 2018, and then Tito 2017, Gressel 2018, and Joseph 2018.
A lot of 2018s. Yeah, and that's understandable. They won MLS Cup, so it's not a shock. Remedi wouldn't have made mine just because he came in halfway through, and that would be the biggest thing. Was just there were others who were there longer. That's why Lorenowitz 2018 made it for me, because he played every game and started all but one. He was just such a rock that year, so I leaned that way. But that's the fun of it. Now you have history to look back on. Now you have like valid comparisons to make between different teams, different eras, different seasons that players had. It's where you're at. Be on the lookout on Twitter for any updates coming out of Bradenton with Atlanta and the Red Bulls playing behind closed doors today. No media are there either, so it's going to be down to the two teams to put out what they want to put out. Sometimes there's video, sometimes there's not. Sometimes there's interviews, sometimes there's not. Depends on where both teams feel they are and where they want to go with this right now. Now, the next two games that Atlanta plays next week, media is available to be on hand. So you will get more reporting on them. And I believe Doug Robertson will be there for both of those. So all kinds of stuff as we get closer and closer to the season getting underway. Thanks, y'all, for being part of the show this week. You've got more stuff coming later today. Crumpets and Espresso late in the day to get you set for the weekend of soccer over there. Before that, you'll have the next hashtag for the kids. I had a chance to talk to Alan Ewing of Southern Futsal. Very cool interview about the rise of futsal and Alan's kind of journey in that. Creating an alternative in a lot of ways, but also a supplement for a lot of clubs and a lot of players to improve. Love the growth of futsal. I love that game. I love what it can do for players. So it was really cool to finally catch up with Alan and talk about it. So be on the lookout for that this afternoon. Crumpets and Espresso later in the day, and all the usual shenanigans on social media.
We've got games that are coming up. You're announcing the high school schedule for the games of the week. We keep adding those games as a part of our grid. Don't forget the Teespring store. Don't forget, hats, scarves, the endangered beanies, because we're really running low on those. So
you want a hat, you want a beanie, you want a scarf, send us a message. We will get it in the mail to you today if you send us a message early enough. So lots of them are on the way to folks who have ordered them. If you want to make sure you get one, shoot us a message. $25 for the hat, for the trucker hat. Chris Ashley has modeled it on his Twitter. There are pictures available on ours as well. The scarf is $20. The beanie is $20. Shipping's $5. If you want to do a package deal, give us a heads up. We'll get you taken care of.
And don't forget the Teespring store with all the other stuff to show your support for SDH, whether it's your favorite city, you want to rep them, it's you want a Pankekes t-shirt, you want a sweatshirt, all those kinds of things. What have I missed that's in the Teespring store?
Stickers.
So all those things to help support us so we can do more things, to help support us so we can do more things and do more stuff for you.
Yes. More content coming. Thanks, y'all, for consuming all of it. Talk to you next week. Mucho platiel.
Mucho platiel.